Hello, everybody. Today I've got the Five of Cups as the obstacle. I used to call this one impending shoegaze. Look at that. Look at that sad, sad card. Five of Cups for the obstacle. And then we got the Star, the superstar, as the opportunity. So let's get started. Um, this is this is like a normally this is a card that signifies a situation of transformation, of change. Ideally, this is somebody stepping up to the six, to a new level of feelings, a new level of emotions, and I think more importantly, to a certain degree, of relationships, um, and relationships specifically as governed by feelings, right? Um, it could be feelings of love, admiration, uh, recognizing some virtue in the other person that you find admirable or inspiring. But yeah, this is a pretty big step. This is the halfway point along the journey in the suit of cups, and it's while it's still dealing with people, it's starting to transition to interacting with ideals, with faith in something larger. It's not relationships and emotions that are a byproduct of say something along the lines of uh, sex or camaraderie, or working together, supporting each other, activities related to the physical world, right? I think this card signifies looking across the river, looking to the next step, and that next step is feeling, something that inspires feelings that is, yeah, it's just an abstract idea. So an example of this could be someone discovering that they're in love with a political figure or an artist, or and where the feeling of love and admiration has less to do with the tangible, real, physical interactions with with that individual, how you relate to each other directly, and more so you start really fall in love with what that person symbolizes. I think another good example might be something like, there's kind of this trope of people meet each other, and then they have this attraction to each other, and they say things or think things like, I want that guy to be the father of my children. I want to have, like, he's not a father yet. He's certainly not the father of our children, but this is the person I want to have kids with. It's like, you're not, the attraction isn't to something that is tangible and immediate. It's this attraction to this potential of where this could go. Um, and I think it better describes falling in love with someone because of a virtue that they possess, as opposed to, and yeah, you know what? I should clarify that beauty, physical beauty could certainly be a virtue, but I guess I mean it more in the sense of something something more kind of in flux, maybe something more varied, uh, an intellect, great ideas, some sort of passion that someone has. The the danger of this card is often described as like fanaticism. You know, you just become a crazy fanatic for some quality that someone has, right? Whether it's some sort of star, yeah, whether it's like a movie star or a musician or a political figure. Often that's the downside, the potential downside of this kind of enraptured admiration of what lies just across. But another interpretation that I have of this card is like in the perfectly balanced emotional state that the Six of Cups represents, which I like to interpret as, or one way I like to interpret it is like two people, and they are meeting each other on the subconscious, the conscious, and the super conscious. Let's say, like in a Freudian sense, it's like two people who are they're lining up on the id, on the ego, and on the super ego level. That kind of perfection of love, right? And using that interpretation of the Six and stepping things back to the Five, this would be something more along the lines of like, okay, so it's a situation where two people, maybe they click on the subconscious, on the id, animal, they have the same instincts, they have a wild sex life, they're uninhibited with each other, something like that. Maybe ego, on the ego wise sort of level, they also click, but then this card could be like the introduction of, like, all of a sudden the third factor is introduced and only one of the people is aware of it. So one person starts realizing like, oh, this, my partner's feelings about society and politics or whatever, I never realized until now, but we are completely like, we're not clicking on that level. Or realizing that someone has a position across one of these three, I guess, fields that you don't even know where you stand. Or maybe they're in that position where they're like, oh, I never even, it's not a part of their life so much. Situations where maybe you click on the super ego and on the ego level, and you're in touch with your id, you're in touch with your animal instinctive side, and the other person is, really suppressing it, like their super ego is just dominating it. And any combination of those where two out of the three are linked up, but all of a sudden there's the realization of the third part of the triad not falling into place. And again, where this card in a positive sense can symbolize crossing over to that six, to that part where all of these are balanced. I think the obstacle interpretation of this card is that this is that, like, the person this relates to, this is a situation where the individual is failing to make that move. They're failing to act. This card represents that movement, that transition, the evolution, and the obstacle here is that the person is not making that move, and even potentially considering going back to the four. At least there was some balance. At this point, if you try and go back to the four, the four would be something like a really simple, straightforward relationship. I don't know if you've been in one of these. I've been in a couple of these. You meet up, you have food together, you have sex, you do things. Everything is just very nice. Are you crazy in love with each other? Nope. Is this the person that you're just fantasizing about spending the rest of your life with? Nope. It's just like a comfortable cohabitation, comfortable coexistence. When you're graduating from the 3 to the 4 and you're experiencing that for the first time, you get that relationship for the first time, it's amazing. Everything's just working out. But once the 5 here happens and you're now aware of the fact that there's this whole other level that you could love someone on and you could be loved, right? You feel like you're not ready. If you feel like you're not ready for the move, maybe you're looking back at that earlier stage being like, fuck, maybe I'll go back to the 4. It's like, that's a bad move because like now you won't be able to be happy there. You won't be fulfilled now that you know that there's this new thing, right? There's this new level on which you could share feelings with another person. Um, but yeah, so the obstacle here would be inaction, and the way to the way to respond to this would be become aware of the fact that you know there's no going back. This, in a lot of ways, this is a card of like nostalgic kind of looking to the past. Um, but you can't go back to the past. Like, even if you did, it would never be the same because you're so different now. You wouldn't be able to have the same experiences even if you managed to end up back there. It might even be a nightmare. But yeah, so awareness of that now for the little bit more optimism here for the opportunity. The star, superstar. This is another card of activity, of transition and movement, the 7. In terms of how the numerology in the tarot is organized, this is the last active active number, even though there's another card on the sort of active half of the tarot, the 9. The 9 is a weird card because it's both an odd number, but it can be divided. Like, it's not what do you call it? It's not a prime, right? Like, you could divide the 9 into 3s, whereas the 7, the 5, and the 3 are the primes in the set. They're unbalanced, undividable. All the balanced numbers are receptive, stable. They represent like a place where things are settled. Yeah, this is the last card of movement and evolution and growth and change. And I think that this card is describing a situation where someone is doing work. They're doing work. This card depicts an individual, I think, doing work on the environment. I think this card can certainly be interpreted as doing environmental work, right? But I think the more significant part of that narrative is that this is a person who's doing the work to enrich the land, and it's not for their own benefit. This is someone who has found the tranquility, serenity, the meaning, the fulfillment of building things, fixing things, improving things, just for the for the act of doing it in a way that doesn't directly benefit them. In the Marseille card in particular, I like to think of the trees that are growing in the background. Orange is kind of a rare color, it's halfway between yellow and red. Orange, purple, they're not really seen that often. But, this is, it's like, what was it? I think it was like it was like Platonic kind of thing where it's important for people to have some sort of philosophical outlook on life that will allow them the ability to like plant seeds from which trees will grow that they will never have the pleasure of sitting under, right? Like, this is the antithesis of, why should I bother doing anything if I'm not going to be around to enjoy it? Like, fuck it. I don't need to clean this up. I'm going to be moving away anyway. Or like, what's the point? I'm just going to pass away at one point. Why bother improving anything, right? This is like the opposite of that. This is finding the meaning and the pleasure, peace and tranquility of doing that work for its own sake. And it's interesting that for a 7 card, like a 7-degree card, the 17, um, it has 8 stars. And both cards depict 8 stars. 8 is like the big super balanced, super perfection number in the tarot. And yeah, I kind of see this card as someone who is on their way to bigger and brighter things, or they're gonna, they're close to ascending to a completely different existence, and metaphorically it could be something as simple as like you're gonna move to a different town, you're gonna change neighborhoods, you're starting a new job, but nonetheless, this is an individual who doesn't use that scenario as an excuse for like abusing the environment. It's like, well, this is my last day at work, so I'm going to steal the stapler. It's like the opposite of that. It's like, you know what? Like, I'm going to make sure that I tidy things up and I leave a nice clean work environment for whoever is going to be replacing me on Monday. Like, it's that kind of an attitude, right? Um, in the Marseille card, I think it's interesting that this character has what kind of looks like a mouth around her belly button. It's kind of it's certainly not like, or it feels certain to me that this is not just a way that people illustrated belly buttons. It's like it seems intentional that this is meant to have this kind of weird mouth symbol like around her belly button. Um, I like to interpret this as, you know, having your navel, having your belly button speak to you, and again, that's symbolic of like you came from somewhere, like you came from your parents, you had an umbilical cord, you were nurtured, by like your mother that carried you. This is like your belly button is evidence of the fact that someone did this kind of nurturing work. They sacrificed their own time, their own calories and energy to help this environment grow and thrive, right? And I think this is like, yeah, I think that's the kind of metaphor there, where it's like if this is the if that's the thing that speaks to you, reminds you that you have a debt, that this is something that you could be inspired by to do this kind of work, and maybe it's the memory of that, maybe it's the awareness of being the the beneficiary of that kind of work from others. What could give you the inspiration to do this, the enjoyment, the fulfillment out of it. And also, it's interesting that the characters are are naked in the Marseille. This is the first naked character, not in the Waite, but it's the first naked character, and I think that also implies that, like, if you have this, like, that this is the activity that doesn't require anything else. Like, you don't need to be dressed up with anything else. This is the thing that you could do that it won't matter if you don't have anything else in the world, right? Yeah, as far as an opportunity, certainly, I think there's an opportunity to, discover this kind of meaning, or the potential for this kind of serenity. You could ask yourself, where in the world do you feel like you could do this kind of work? There is a flip side for the kind of more negative interpretations of the card that involves like celebrity, like actual stars, and then the kind of environmental work that celebrities often do. Which, I mean, if you hear about it, like, there's probably a pretty good chance that that is at least, a significant portion of the reason why they're doing it. I would love to, you know, I would love to experience the contrast where it's like some famous person one day they just kind of disappear, and then years later you found out that it was at that point in time that they walked away from acting and publicity and professional fame, and they started fixing something, working on something, and no one even heard about it because they were completely committed to. They just wanted to work on that thing. But yeah, but often with celebrity, it's like even with amateur celebrity, people going out, like the amount of videos that I come across fairly regularly on social media of, hey, here I am handing out sandwiches to the homeless. It's like, yeah, you're not just handing out sandwiches to the homeless. You're handing out sandwiches to the homeless and you're filming yourself. And like you're filming some homeless person as you give them a sandwich. I don't know. That just often leaves a bad taste in my mouth. No sandwich pun intended. Um, but yeah, so I think the opportunity here is to, you know, find that you could find that there's something that you could do to make things better, to improve the environment, whether it's the physical organic environment or the neighborhood, the community, and not do it for the praise, not do it for the political favors, not do it for you know someone's gonna film it, you're gonna get likes on social media. It's like it's the opportunity to find fulfillment in the genuine act for of doing it, to just like it's almost like not even do it for yourself, because that's one way of describing it, like don't do it for the social media, just do it for yourself. But even doing it for yourself is kind of inaccurate. Do it for the sake of doing the act on its own. um, and then yeah, so that's the opportunity there to find this. um, and again, this is a transitional card, so this is like, is this the last thing someone does before they advance to the 8, or is this the thing that you need to do before you can advance to the 8, right? Do people just start acting this way when they see that this kind of perfection is just around the corner? Is having that in your sights what is required to be able to find the kind of inspiration to do this, or is it that through doing this you find the next thing? And I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if anyone does, but I think it's certainly worth experimenting, asking yourself what can be done just for the sake of doing it, and then trying it out. I'm gonna leave things there. Thanks for watching. Drop me a like if you found any of this interesting, or a comment if you would like to be entered into the super exciting weekly draw for a free one-on-one reading. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.